Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor
and his cousin
gives you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides. For the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides, and you can follow my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared. This episode covers all of the games we haven't talked about yet from week one of the 2022 college football season. There's some leftover games at this point, but there's a couple of A picks left that have just been like sitting there waiting the whole time. So, I mean, there's still some good things here that we like here to wrap us up. And we're going to recap a couple of line movements at the end as well, the 2-minute drill. So we're going to round out the week one college football coverage. If you've missed episodes 1 or 2, Jared, put up to this guy for me here. See if you can you? I was telling Jake to do this. Yeah, up there. Yep, there you go. There's episode 1 right there. Yep, right where his finger was. And then when that ends, I'll throw episode 2 up there too. So if you haven't seen those, you can pause this. You can open a new tab, watch it. We got a ton of week 1 coverage. We're gonna have 3 episodes every week, so we got you covered for all the college football stuff. Every college football game, the good ones and the bad ones. And my goodness, they're actually bad ones, but that's the way it goes every year. Yep. In case you're new here, I've built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread should be for every FBS college football game. That information, along with each team's power rating and a graded A, B, or C pick for every game this week, is available in the Google Sheet that is linked in the show's description. That doesn't mean I recommend you do the same. So our goal in this episode is to share key information about this week's games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why certain plays are being made in order for you to come up with picks that you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with us or against us before investing your hard-earned money. As you go through the plays, remember that there are no locks in gambling. So I'll give you our loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. Cousin Jared will also be utilizing a weighted unit scale this college football season. And as always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I like to say it'll be profitable each and every week, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, how many games were there in week 1? Was it 7?
Yes. Yeah, I think there were about 7 FBS versus FBS games. Yeah.
At least as of right now, and it's not going to last very long, but our ratio of games played to episodes of this season is like pretty close to 1-to-1.
That is crazy.
It's not going to hold. It's going to pull apart quickly because otherwise we would die. It would just be like 24/7 of college football, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world actually. But
no, it wouldn't.
Other people besides just us talking about it.
Exactly.
Anything else to talk about before we get to the madness here? I feel like we've been through the spiel at this point.
Yeah, we've got a few things we'll hit on at the end, some stuff that have changed. But other than that, let's just get right into it.
All right. Well, before we get to the game, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you're on it, please consider subscribing or following. It's free and the only way, assuming you turn notifications on, to ensure you don't miss any college football, college basketball, or MLB content that this channel provides. Share with a friend if others in the game. Hit us up on Twitter or drop a comment from YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. As always, lines courtesy of Bet Online. You can sign up with them. Link in the description. We got all the Thursday games out of the way already. Was there anything else at the 2 minutes? Is there anything you want to talk about the Thursday games? I feel like we covered them all in the 2 episodes. We even kind of looked back to one. Was there anything else that jumped out at you on that? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. We didn't talk about if we were going to say anything about this.
No, I don't specifically think so. Anything about Thursday. The only thing I would say, the more that I thought about Jake's play of the over on the Pitt West Virginia game, I think he might have had a good angle there. So the number right now is not a number that I'm necessarily interested in, but just the more I thought about that, I think Jake might have been onto something there. I think he had the over 51 or so, I believe.
51 and a half. And the number right now is
52.
Yeah. So 51, if it gets to 51, is that your buy point?
Yes, that would
or the 51 and a half that he had. Would you be okay with that even?
I would probably be like, I'm a little bit pickier. Like really 50 and a half, I don't think it's gonna get there, but 51, yeah. Again, just the more I thought about that, I think he might have been onto something there.
Okay. And I think it's an interesting point as well. I don't know if you were with us last year, you saw this, because Jared, you are a little pickier on your plays. You need you kind of see it with baseball as well. You kind of need a little bit of a bigger edge, and that's totally fine. People have different philosophies on this. I'm not going to tell some people out there like this is the way to do it. I'm not going to tell you what the right way to do it is or not. I think if you feel like you have it, if you feel like you have an edge, fire away. If you want to be picky and have bigger edges, be more restrained. Whichever one works. The biggest thing is just if you don't think you have an edge, don't make a play. But if that's more games or less games, if you want to take advantage of larger sample sizes, or if you want to be a little more picky and take the edges you think are better, I mean, either one kind of works. Because you're a little more on the I need this number kind of thing. So that's why we have to sometimes talk you into plays. We're like, nah, it's good enough. Let's just do it.
Yeah, exactly. I do need that push sometimes for sure.
Yeah. So interesting note there that you kind of think maybe over 51. It sounds like you also don't think 52 is crazy. You're not going to make that play, but over 52 also you don't think.
No. I mean, 52, 51, almost no difference between those two numbers.
Yeah. All right. So to the Friday games, we've already covered a handful of them. Got two more to round out. The first one, Virginia Tech at Old Dominion. Earlier in the week, this was Tech minus Virginia. I say Virginia Tech. I think people get offended if I say this. Virginia Tech -7. Now it was -8 earlier in the week. For this one, the model it says 7.2. So earlier in the week, might have said take Old Dominion +8. I'm going to take Virginia Tech now that it's down to 7 with the C grade pick. I think this number's hung pretty well. It's not one that I think has got a great investment opportunity. I don't really know what to make about either teams at this point. Virginia Tech's obviously better on the road, though. A low total here, 48. I mean, I don't really know what to expect in this game. I think I'm going to watch this. It's one of the games that I want to watch more for. I think I can learn a little bit about both these teams here early on in the season. Two teams that I think are going to be interesting because I think they both have some pretty high variance on what we can expect from them. Obviously, Virginia Tech being in the ACC, we talked about, that probably applies to every team in that conference, to be honest. With the high variability. But like I said, I'll take Virginia Tech with a lean here just because it's at 7. Like I said, I think it's a pretty good number, though. I personally don't have a huge lean one way or the other on it. Because, Jared, what do you think about this one?
Well, the only thing I know about this game is it's the battle of former Penn State assistant coaches. So I guess Penn State fans might be watching this game. I don't know. The thing is I don't disagree with your pick. Definitely, you would think that the talent advantage that Virginia Tech has, although the Virginia Tech fans would say that they don't have much of a talent advantage, as we would think, because that's why Justin Fuente got run out of town. But you would think that would eventually, come through in a game like this. But man, if Old Dominion wins this game, Virginia Tech fans are never going to hear the end of it, because I know those Old Dominion fans like to give the bigger in-state schools a hard time about that. So, I think I'm probably going to be pulling for Old Dominion in this one, just for the sake of some trash talk.
And that's why I said I think 7's a really good number for this one, because you can see Old Dominion hanging in there and just giving Virginia Tech the fight of their lives, even though they're talent-wise, they're outmatched in this game. But like you said, they're going to throw everything you can at them. Home crowd's going to be as rabid as possible for them, because this is a big game for them. But again, you could also see Virginia Tech just coming out and manhandling them and just saying sometimes you see these games like this and it's like one team's just got more talent than the other, and they could just, be up by 20 for most of the game and it just be kind of a snooze fest, not beat them by 50, but, just kind of be up in control. I think it's a pretty good price. Like I said, I'll take Virginia Tech at 7. I would not take them at 7.5. But either one of these numbers is kind of a tougher angle for me personally. Also at 7 p.m. Eastern, the other Friday game to cover this week, Western Michigan at Michigan State, another in-state battle. This one at the better team rather than at the underdog. Michigan State is a 22-point favorite. I'll take them with a lean as well as C-grade pick. Total of 54. Model says 21.9, another number that's pretty good. I'm going to take Michigan State here with a lean simply because last year the model did us so well with Michigan State. And so if the number's priced well, that's the way I'm going to lean. I don't think Michigan State – I think we all kind of realized that Michigan State probably wasn't as good as they played last year. They kind of had breaks go their way. But I mean, still a good team, still a much better team than Western Michigan. I wish it was 21. At 21, I could get a little more excited about this play. At 22, I'm like, Michigan State could easily win by 24, 27, 28, but they could win by 17, 20, 21 as well. It's a really good number, I think, at 22. Like I said, I'll take them just as an homage to as much money as they made us last year. But again, another well-priced game, I think, because Joe, what do you have for us on this one?
I think the say about this game is that Michigan State has definitely changed my opinion of them since Mel Tucker has got there, because a couple of years ago, I would have, getting 22 points against Michigan State, the first game of the season against one of these, G5 teams, I would have been take the points every time, because this is one of those games that Michigan State just, messes around and wins by 6 points or something like that.
And the MAC loves to do this, to go into a Big Ten school early early in the season and kind of catch them with their pants down and either beat them or hang in there and scare the crap out of them. I'm with you. This would line up perfect for that a couple years ago.
Exactly. But the thing is, Michigan State, I think, is a lot better now. And I'm just never going to forget how shocked I was when they just came out and just ran all over Northwestern in that first game last year. Obviously, Kenneth Walker, wonderful season, great running back. So maybe they're down a notch since he's not there anymore. But man, I'm not going against Michigan State in this spot. So no play for me here. But man, a couple of years ago, I would have been all over Western Michigan, but can't say that anymore.
Yeah. I said at the top, I love the comments. Someone please don't comment Michigan State can't score now. Like I it's a big number. I know. Like you don't have to comment about that. Like give me some good insight on the comments. Let's say something silly like that. Michigan State should absolutely win this game. It's a big number. It's why it's a secret pick, right? I'm kind of telling you up front, like I don't really. If you're gonna say Western Michigan, I'm gonna be like, sure. Like that's kind of the whole point of the secret pick is to kind of say this is kind of where. That's why I say lean. I'm leaning that direction, but it's not what I really like. Like I said, at 21. Especially 20. At 20, I'm getting kind of excited about Michigan State. I'm like, man, that they can easily win by 20 or 21, but missing out on both those key-ish numbers at least is it kind of hurts. So just to lean there on Michigan State, I'm like, I wouldn't go against them really, but I don't really like laying this big of a number. To another big number here, Saturday noon Eastern, Buffalo at Maryland. Maryland is a whopping 24.5 point favorite at home. Questions could be asked, should Maryland be 24.5 point favorites over anybody? At home at least, I guess that's good.
Yeah.
Model says this should be Maryland minus 16 or 16.5. That is a whopping mathematically. I've got this as a 19% edge. There's no way that it's really a 19% edge. I know. I mean, no model's perfect. I mentioned this the other day. There's an old saying in statistics, right? All models are wrong. Some models are useful. The idea is that we got 130 teams. It's not going to peg them all correctly. We're trying to be kind of directionally correct in a lot of this. I can throw all the statistical buzz phrases around at you here. Obviously, I don't think the spread should be 16. I think it should be higher than that. But the model's trying to tell us something here. Now, because you were asking about this at the start, and I was already saying Buffalo was a team the model loved last year. And finally, towards the end of the year, the model was like, just kidding. They aren't very good.
Okay.
And they weren't.
So you're saying there's a chance that the model is not just infatuated with Buffalo this year?
I'm saying there's a chance, but I'm not convinced about that.
Okay.
I feel like my leash on Buffalo is shorter this year than last year. Last year it was kind of like, okay, I'll believe it. Okay, because I think they covered one of those early games, I think, and so it was kind of like they covered like one of the first four, and you're kind of like, okay, I'll still give it a chance. And then they like didn't cover again. And at some point it was like, enough's enough. Like, I know the model says this, but like, again, it can't be perfect on 130 teams.
Right.
But then it finally towards the end of the year was like kind of saying, no, it kind of adjusted really well. And so it's a good question. I really don't know if the model's seeing something in Buffalo here that's kind of like there's some hope for them. It's interesting enough, right? We're recording this on late Thursday night or late Wednesday night. We'll put this up on Thursday morning. Lance Lynn's pitching right now. If you watch the MLB show, I talked about it this morning. I said Lance Lynn is like the model's seeing something like I don't really know, but like I'm going to trust the model. So, and he's having a great start tonight, and for the White Sox, looking good for us. And that's exactly the same thing here with Buffalo. I'm like, I don't really know, but I'm like hoping that the model's seeing something, but you just never really know. And my thought is, I'm going to give Buffalo a game or two. And if they can at least show some signs of life, then I'll say, hey, I think the model's got it. If not, I am a little bit concerned that we're going to have a little bit of Buffalo bias. We're going to have to balance.
Right.
I don't know why the model would be biased to Buffalo, but it was last year. Like I said, it can't hit on every team, but directionally, if nothing else, it says that 24.5 is too much. I love that we're getting the hook here. I'll trust the model. It's an A grade play. At 21, I would be like, I probably would be on Buffalo, but I wouldn't love it as much. But getting 24 and the hook, I mean, I'm going to make Maryland prove it. And Maryland might absolutely go out there and win by 40. Like, last year's Buffalo team would have lost on the road to a lot of teams by 40. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm just going to say, you know what, tip my cap. But I'm going to make Maryland prove it on the field that they can consistently play 60 minutes and just stomp a team that they should stomp and not just, let them hang around and only win by 21 or 24 or something like that. Yeah. So it's an A-grade play for me on Buffalo at plus 24.5. I'm crossing my fingers the model isn't crazy on Buffalo like it was last year. Because Julie, what do you got for us?
So I'm not going to sit here and try to break down the X's and O's of this game other than to say the Maryland defense could do something that makes these 24.5 points relevant. I think they could definitely, Buffalo could get loose in the second half and score some points. So that's my X's and O's analysis of this. I think more importantly for you, viewer, about this. So the professor's model is not the only model that I take into consideration. There's other models out there that you can go take a look at, and everything that I could possibly find also gives an edge to Buffalo. So it maybe not quite as large as the professor does, but every model out there gives some sort of edge. And they're all crossing some key numbers. Even the ones who, it's not just like Maryland's not just a 16-point favorite. Even some of the other ones, you're crossing the key numbers of 20, 21, 23. Like we mentioned with the hook here, 24. This is one of those things where there's just crossing so many key numbers. Yeah, that it's just like this is a statistically smart play, in my opinion. So I am also on Buffalo here. I'm taking the 24.5 points. And sure, maybe we look dumb on Saturday afternoon, but that's a lot of points, and I'll gladly take them.
And I have a few follow-ups. So number one, we might absolutely look dumb. The good news is with 24.5 points, it'll at least probably be until halftime before we look dumb or close to halftime. It's not one of those games where we can feel dumb in the first 5 minutes because they're probably going to be covering at least 5 minutes in. Number two, though, it's like you said, it's statistically a smart play. That's why it's an A-grade play. I just want to get more units down on what's a smart play. I think it's going to pay off for us in the long run. Y'all have heard me, if y'all follow me on Twitter, I've talked about this a little bit. Like, I'm not a big closing line value guy. I think that like helps you, but I think it's just a little bit. I think it's going to give you a 0.5% edge, a 1% edge. That's not enough to cover the juice.
You're not a closing line. You're not a closing line value guy. I had no idea.
I'm not. It's some people don't follow me on Twitter, so you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But some people they tout this. I just think it's overblown. I don't think it's useless. I just think it's overblown. Right. But it's not that dissimilar from this. Like, this is a smart statistical play, but smart statistical plays aren't going to be the only thing that makes you money, right? And I'll say the same thing about that as I will about closing line value. It's one piece of the pie. You should be thinking about trying to beat the number. That's a thing. You should be trying to shop around. That's a thing. You should be trying to take advantage betting earlier or late. You should try to find before the number moves. You should be finding the smart key numbers that you're crossing. You should be all the little things add up to make a successful better. I think this is a very smart statistical play, but that alone isn't going to make us money. But it is one that I think you should be thinking about, and you should be adding to your arsenal here. Too many points here for Buffalo. It's crossing so many key numbers, especially the hook. Plus 24 is still a great play in my opinion, but plus 24.5 is like just a cherry on top here. And like you said, we might look like fools. Maryland might win by 40, but like you said, their defense isn't that good. So I'm going to make them prove it for 60 minutes on both sides of the ball. Maryland's going to have stretches where they look good, but if they have stretches where they fall asleep, we just need Buffalo not to get their, completely embarrassed. We got a winner here. Some other big lines here. 2:30 Eastern kickoff. Bowling Green at UCLA. UCLA is a 23-point favorite. I'll take UCLA with a B grade. The model says 24.2. So model says 24 or 25. So the fact that, if UCLA wins by 24, we get the win. I think there's some value here on UCLA. It's like a B- pick. It's not one I love. It's such a big number in week one. But I mean, it's hard to not think UCLA is just a much better team at home, traveling across the country. If Bowling Green sleepwalks at all at any point of this game, they're going to give up like 30 points in a hurry, you'd think. So I'll take UCLA at minus 23. Like I said, it's a B- pick. I like UCLA. I don't love them because the number's just too big. At 21, I'd be really excited about it. At 23, again, I think the model says 24 and a half. So I think 23 is an okay play. That's why I get to B grade. I think it's worth a look, but it's not worth a heavy look because the number's just too big. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
Yeah, this may be one that I have my eye on because last year Bowling Green, so they went into Minnesota and beat Minnesota last year, which maybe the most inexplicable game of the season.
Top 10 for sure, maybe top 5. Yeah.
It was really, really crazy. And also I loved Bowling Green last year because they were an under machine. I mean, cashed those tickets every single week. The problem is obviously they were cashing tickets on the under because their offense wasn't good. And the problem is their defense started falling apart at the end of the season as well. So this is a team that I'm watching closely because I think there's going to be a lot of statistics baked into their metrics from last year, that first part of the season with that defense, that it could really kind of skew things, the more that's taken into consideration. You really want to capitalize on that, early in the season while you can. So if Bowling Green comes out and gets their doors blown off, which I think they're probably going to, because I don't see any way their offense can keep up in this game, then that'll be something to note going forward in the season. The more I look at the number, the more I'm kind of intrigued by it. But it's one of those things where like I don't feel strongly enough about it to wait. So like, I don't feel strongly about it. Strong enough about it to make a play right now. So maybe this is something I'll wait on, see what happens on Saturday. Maybe throw something on it last minute, something like that.
A lot of key points to talk about here. Like we talked about at the top of the show, right? You're just a little more selective, right? If you were a little bit more trigger happy, I think this is a play that you would make.
Yeah.
But it's a great point there that the strength of any good model is its prior, taking into consideration the data from previous seasons. And that's why we always say like the model is going to work really well for most teams, but there's going to be a couple that it just misses on. It can't be perfect for 130 teams. And that's a great point, Cousin Jared, that you make, that if we can identify early on the handful of teams, because there's going to be 5 to 10 that if we can just identify as no, just don't trust them here for the model, we can really capitalize, avoid some losses and grab some extra wins. So if we can find the teams that the model's just going to miss on and then say, yeah, we could trust it for the other 120, but these 10 we can't, that would be really good. So a great point there to keep an eye on Bowling Green, that if they get smoked in this game, we may want to try to take advantage of it here the next few weeks before all the models and everybody catches up to realize that their defense at the start of the season last year numbers are completely irrelevant to the season.
Yes. Yep, exactly.
And you view out there may be like, of course it's irrelevant, but it's not on the whole. That's the thing is that when you look at previous seasons data, it's relatively predictive, especially when you take into account who's coming back. So for the most part, it's probably more predictive than you think. And that's why we kind of utilize it heavily, but at times you have to fade that out a little bit more aggressively. And again, a model I'm not manually trying to do this, right? The model on the whole kind of has a process to do that. And you can't just go in there and if you try to just manually override everything left and right, now you're violating every statistical principle known to man, basically.
Yeah.
Speaking of a big spread here, I love this one. This is probably my favorite play of this episode. 3:30 Eastern, UTEP at OU. Oklahoma's a 31-point favorite. Earlier it was 31.5, and I was like, I'm laying the 31.5. I don't care. Now it's 31. I get the push on 31. I love it. I'm even better. Great play for me on the Sooners. I don't know what to expect for Oklahoma. We talked about them in the season preview. You still got a chance to go watch those. If you haven't seen those season preview episodes, there's a whole webpage on the website devoted to that. Make some season-long bets. You still got some time to watch those. We talked about OU. There's a lot of question marks, obviously. Like, nothing really changed in Norman, right? It's like the same story as last year, I think, right? Like nothing happened there, I guess, right? Nothing of note.
No.
Nothing. So a lot of questions there, obviously, on Oklahoma, but in general, I think they're still going to be light years ahead of this UTEP team, a UTEP team that we talked about last week. We talked about in previous episodes having that game under your feet, probably a good thing. I think that matters more when you're playing a team in your same stratosphere. I don't think it matters as much when you're playing a team as talented as Oklahoma, a team that, to use a basketball phrase, you just roll the ball out there and they're going to crush you. So I think that game under their feet doesn't really matter for UTEP. And we talked about UTEP and liking UNT last week, and we still are high on UNT. But part of that is that North Texas is a good team and we like them. And part of that is taking advantage of the fact that UTEP, a lot of last year's success, kind of some smoke and mirrors. They're not a very good football team.
And struggled down the stretch, just like Bowling Green did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I 31 is way too low. I personally, this feels like it should be 38, maybe 37. Model says 36.5. I think we're going to look back. I could be wrong. Every time I say something, right, I open myself to look like a fool, right? But I could be wrong. But I feel like 3 weeks from now, we're going to look back at this game and be like, man, you should have been like a 40-point favorite in that. How was it only 31? It's an great play for me. I love the Sooners. I'm laying the lumber with them here. Because Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to look this up because I don't like just going off of like memory for some of these things. But UTEP, their first big game of the season last year, they opened with New Mexico State and Bethune-Cookman. Third game of the season, they went on the road at Boise State and lost 54-13. And that was, that Boise State team finished 7-5. I mean, they were fine, but not the normal Boise State teams that we're used to.
So that was by 41.
Yeah, so might be a similar situation here. I know we also mentioned that we like playing the teams that played in week 0 that against teams that didn't play in week 0. I don't think this qualifies.
No.
And the other thing is
asterisk doesn't apply when you're playing a team that's light years better than you.
Yeah, and the other thing is unlike most week 0 games, the one with UTEP and North Texas, that was a conference game. That was a big game. It was like the first near sellout of the Sun Bowl in almost like 14 years or something like that. So it was a big game. They lost. It was a conference game. Not a good way to start your season. I don't see UTEP hanging around in this one. The thing is, like, I would say go with the professor here, because the model is built to see things like this. Like, from my naked eye, I can't see the difference between 31 points and 38 points, right? But if the model sees something, that's exactly what it's for. So I wholly agree, man. Go with what the professor says on this one.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. That's why the model was built, was to help us identify that. It's a great point you make. Pulled up last year, Boise State. We don't really know what to expect of this OU team. I think they're an interesting play for Big 12 title at the odds that you're seeing. In the event they're good, in the event that Texas struggles again, it's like they're probably going to get there. But I mean, if they ended up having one of those wonky OU seasons that they seem to have every like 5-ish years, and they go like 8-4 or something, I mean, that wouldn't be crazy either. But I mean, an 8-4 Oklahoma team is still going to thump UTEP, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, and if they're actually a good OU team, if they're an 11-win OU team, I mean, they're probably going to be up like 62-3 at some point in this game. I mean, it's going to be ugly in that scenario. So yeah, I love laying the lumber here with Oklahoma. A 4:00 Eastern, BYU at South Florida. BYU is a 12-point road favorite. Two teams from Utah this week traveling to play on the road against two teams in Florida. It's like with baseball right now. We have the Yankees and the Angels playing while the Mets and the Dodgers play. I feel like these things, some schedule makers, like, at least for baseball, it's like, but like this, no schedule maker did this for football. This was independent. I just think it's funny that played out. Maybe, if the teams don't play well, maybe they'll have to fly back together or something like that, right? The coaches are upset with them. BYU is definitely a better team. We talked about BYU a lot on the season preview show. Tough schedule for them. A lot of teams get up for BYU. South Florida is probably getting up for this game, knowing that BYU is kind of a national presence. Can they hang in there with 12? I don't tend to think so. I just think they're going to be out talented. Only a B grade play for me. Model says it should be BYU minus 13.5, basically. So 12 offers a little bit of value because 13 is a semi-key number, and easily they could win by 14. The model basically says the two most likely outcomes are 13 and 14, and that means BYU covers this. The issue is that the next two most likely outcomes are probably 11 and 10. And so it's one of those where you can't just say, the two most likeliest things are BYU cover. It's like, but they're not that much more likely than the next two. It's really that like two of the top four are BYU covers, but those are still a little bit more likely. So I think BYU is probably worth a play here at 12. It's just not one I love. At 11, I'm a little more intrigued. At 10, I'd love BYU. But at 12, I think they're probably the right side. But I can't quite get there to an A-grade play. It's just not enough value here. Other thing I will say, we talked about BYU on the season preview episode. They're a team that I'm a little bit concerned about the depth, the wear and tear from that schedule, the injuries, that sort of stuff. That's going to play out more down the road. Right now, they should be fully healthy. So my concern is more for BYU on those things, not really applicable here to week one. So this sets up to be a spot where BYU takes care of business and goes on the road and gets a win, a B-grade play that they can win by enough to cover. Because Jared, total of 58. You have any insight for us on this one?
No insight on the total here. You mentioned we covered BYU in the season preview. Go watch that. But what I would say is BYU, I think they're going to be a good team. BYU, really tough schedule this year. And man, this one is, just to be completely frank with you, there's no way I'm backing BYU in this spot. Utah team traveling to Florida. It's going to be hot and humid there. South Florida played respectable towards the end of the season. They didn't win any games, but they were playing in some close games there. Like you mentioned, they're going to be up for this game. The thing is with this BYU schedule, every week is a possible look ahead spot. So they're thinking this is a relatively easier win for the start of the season. You got Baylor coming to town next week. Then the next week you go on the road at Oregon. You've got back-to-back rivalry games with Wyoming and Utah State, and then Notre Dame. You go play at Notre Dame. It's just one punch after another. And so this is a spot where I'd say traveling on the road to, inhospitable weather the first week of the season, look ahead spot. This is just one of those things where it's like, I just want to stay away from this one.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I said I would love 10 with BYU, but I mean, it's not that many numbers before you go the other direction. And I'd love the other side, because if you could give me, and you're never going to see 14 in this game, barring something crazy. And we have seen sometimes some Saturday morning movements where I'm like, what is happening? Like, is there some and I'm like Googling like crazy. I'm like, was there some suspension? Like, why is this number moving? Every once in a while you see this. So you never really know, but like, you probably aren't going to, but I mean, South Florida plus 14, it's not that many numbers the other direction. And you're like, whoa, now you're really getting excited about that side with a couple of key numbers. With the model saying 13 and a half. So I'd kind of like you. It's one of those where, like, if the number been a couple of points in either direction, you could kind of really talk yourself into some different plays here. 12 is a solid number. It's like I said, it's a B- play. My cousin Jared, you make a couple of good points there. I do wonder, a lot of the look ahead stuff really manifests itself mostly on coaches who are more likely to pull their players early on, not try to keep their foot on the gas, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You really do wonder, and there's a lot of question marks for a lot of these teams. So something to think about here is BYU going to be one of those teams? Are they going to try to find what might work, try some different, things to prep for next week? Because they also, you talk about next week, I can flip this on its head real quick, right? Which is, they have to be a fine-tuned machine for next week. So they need to use every snap to their advantage to make sure everything is working properly, or else they're going to lose to Baylor. And so you kind of can go either way on that, and you never really know what a coach is going to do. And if you think you do, the only way I trust that is if you're like friends with them or something, or it's like, your spouse is friends with his spouse or whatever, right? Because otherwise you never know how that's going to go. But there's a lot of questions either way, some definite uncertainty. We talked about Utah playing in Florida and the conditions, and you're absolutely right that's not friendly conditions. I think BYU is just a lot more talented in South Florida. I think they should go in and win. The question is just by how much, and it does feel like a game that's 10-14 late, and you're going to be biting your nails. That's why I said only a B grade pick, like I said, a B- pick. I think BYU is worth a look, but I think there are much better investments across the day, of course.
Yep.
One of those also at 4:00 Eastern, UL Monroe at Texas. Cousin Jared, for those who don't know, my father is a Texas alum. For those who don't know, Cousin Jared, Texas A&M alum. We both have some takes on Texas every year. We had some takes last year. The model has Texas like 11th or something, and I'm like,
oh God, yeah.
I have no words for that. I think there's two things that are true. Texas might be the 11th most talented team in the country. I think that might be true.
Yeah.
Will Texas finish with enough wins to be ranked 11th by the end of the season? I would bet a lot of money on no. Unless you gave me really horrible odds on it. If you're talking about even money odds, I would say no. I would say no way.
Yeah.
The model loves Texas. They do have a lot of talent. My question, and I'm curious what you think on this, Cousin Jared, and then I'll kind of come back and talk about. I'm curious what you think. The biggest issues I think we have with Texas is the quarterback play. More uncertainty around that this year. Looking ahead, looking around, looking behind, looking over your shoulder, looking every which way possible. They have tons of talent everywhere. The question I have is, that matters for sure when you start playing better teams. Does it matter against UL Monroe, or could they literally roll you and I out there and still have enough talent to win this game by 40? Because that's what they're going to have to do to cover a number like 38, as big as it is.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters who plays quarterback for them. I would say my bigger concern for them is offensive line, and the maybe the most inexplicable thing about Texas for the past however many years has been their defense. They always have good talent on the defense. Secondary especially always have good players, and they always find a way to kind of fall apart. What I do want to address here, though, is that we gave Jake a hard time for being a Tennessee fan and given a hard time to Florida in that game against Utah. Let the record show that I think Texas has earned any bad things that I may say about them. It does not matter where I went to school or anything like that. It's because Texas has been Texas for the past, decade.
Well, and anyone who's been with us for any time knows that. And Jake, we've said this to Jake's face. We're not talking behind his back. He'll watch this and he'll probably be nodding. He'll probably comment when he watches this, be like, "Yeah, you guys are right." Like, we give Jake a hard time. Jake's a little bit of a homer, right? And people who've watched know that you aren't. So there's a little bit of a difference there, that your fandom doesn't get in the way. You're right. Everything that we say bad about Texas has nothing to do with me going to Baylor and any rivalry there, or you going to A&M and having rivalry there. It's like, as we all know, it's been inexplicably confusing why they haven't been better. Like you said, the defense has been problematic. I bring up the quarterback specifically because I think Texas has so much talent that if they can figure out a quarterback, they should score enough points to hang in with almost anybody other than those top three teams. They'd hang in with almost anybody. Maybe Clemson if their offense is competent, that defense, right? But I mean, they'd hang in with everybody. But if they don't have that quarterback play, their defense is questionable. it feels like another potential 6-6 type season for them if they can't figure that out, which is crazy because they talent wise, they should be a top 10 team talent wise.
Yep.
They just can't seem to get it together year after year, it seems like.
Yep.
So, Cousin Jared, you don't think it seems to matter? I'm concerned it doesn't. That's why this is only a B grade play for me on UL Monroe. I like getting as many points as possible. I think that there's a decent chance that, I don't want to say this is UL Monroe's Super Bowl, but these small schools do kind of get up for the big teams. I think they're going to fight hard. Texas, you just never know where their head is. Texas has let a lot of teams that they shouldn't hang around over the years. And I don't mean like 7 years ago, because that's not really relevant. I'm talking about the last two with some of these players, they've let teams hang around. It's only a B grade play because you're absolutely right. I am concerned that it doesn't really matter the specifics. They can go out there and just roll the ball out there and just crush UL Monroe. UL Monroe is really, really, really bad. But even with that said, the model still says it should be 35.5. So at 38, we're getting some value. 38's are there any key numbers out here? A quasi key number? I mean, we have a little bit of a push protection. I mean, it's like the smallest push protection possible at 38, but I mean, it's better than 37.5. 37.5 to 38 is better than 36.5 to 37. But I think it's too many points, but I am just concerned that UL Monroe is so bad that all of the issues that Texas have won't manifest itself in a game against a team this bad. Yeah. But I still think UL Monroe is the play. I still think they're worth a look. And the reason why is I think there's just too much hype on Texas like there is every year. The model, I think, is too hyped up on Texas. I think that you also have to consider the possibility that Texas having so many question marks, and we talked about this with a couple teams, they're going to try to do all the weird little things and figure stuff out because they've got to figure stuff out. And that means they could easily win by 35. And it's not drastically different than Oklahoma. I think both of those games could be 35-point victories because both of them have things they have to figure out. It's just that one of them's a 31-point spread and one's a 38-point spread, right? Yeah. But I mean, they're both fairly similar in that they both could easily be runaway games, but both teams tinkering with things, and both teams that could, if they wanted to and were running on full cylinders, go out there and win by 55, but they're not going to because it's week one. And like I said, they both might end up winning by 35. And that's why I love Oklahoma because it's 31 and I'm taking UL Monroe because it's 38. But I am concerned UL Monroe is so bad. I can't give it an A grade. But I think it's too many points.
Yeah. I guess two things specific to this game. Number one, we'll learn everything we need to know about Texas next week. So let's talk about that then.
Oh God, Alabama. Oh.
Yeah, that one's gonna get
why?
That one's gonna
why?
Get and the other thing is, I know you come to this show for the UL Monroe analysis. So let me give you something here. When you're looking at totals for UL Monroe, last year they played really fast. Rich Rodriguez was their offensive coordinator. They played really fast, so that kind of that inflated the numbers that you saw hung for their totals just because they were running so many plays and their pace was so fast. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea who their offensive coordinator is this year, but it's gonna be a lot harder for them to play faster than what they did last year. Right. So this is one of those things where you may see a total number that's a little higher than what may be reality just based on the priors from last year. Their pace was so high. So I just want to throw that out there.
I was thinking under in this game too, 64.5. It's just, there's just questions on Texas defense. It's hard to get out of my head growing up in the state. For so many years, this was a game that if UL Monroe covered, it was going to be because Texas didn't score that much, but UL Monroe was never going to get a touchdown in this game.
Right.
For so many years. And the Texas defense, like you said, has so many question marks on it. And it still feels too high, 64.5. It feels like under's the way to look here because I still don't think UL Monroe is going to score that much. Like I said, I could be wrong, but that Texas defense has all the talent in the world on it.
Yeah.
And if they can figure something out, I mean, the way that UL Monroe covers is, it's like 45 to 10. Is kind of the blueprint. And again, that's 55 points. I mean, 64.5 seems high. And like you were saying, I think it's a little inflated, but again, the huge question mark for that Texas defense. UL Monroe might score more than my brain wants to think it will.
Yeah, maybe so.
We'll talk a lot about Texas all season, I feel like.
We will.
There's no way around it. 6 p.m. Eastern, Florida Atlantic and Ohio. That's a game that's going to happen. You definitely don't have to watch them to make the monies, right? Remember that. Florida Atlantic, the model says should be a 6-point favorite. Earlier in the week, this was 3.5. So if you saw the sheet, I had projected 6. And if you grab 3.5, or as it started going up, if you grab 4, at normal juice, you are rewarded a little bit. Now it's 4 minus 120. I also take Florida Atlantic. I still think it's worth a B grade. The difference between 4 to 6 is not the greatest 2 points, but when the model says it's more likely that it's a touchdown than anything else, I'm less concerned about the 4 because the 2 most likely scenarios in this game are 6 and 7, and the 3rd most likely scenario is 4. So if the top 3, we win 2 and push 1. And the next one, of course, is 3, but then the next one's 10. So it starts kind of balancing it out there. I still think 4 is a solid play. There's a decent chance we push at 4. The biggest concern that we have losing is them only winning by 3, but they're more likely also to win by 6 or 7. Their game against Charlotte, they're probably a little bit overinflated because Charlotte had issues with their quarterback Charlotte looked good for the first quarter with him in there. Then he gets hurt and then the wheels start falling off. A pick 6 happens for the half and then they could just never get back in it. Right. But that said, Florida Atlantic still looked like last week, what I saw from them, they actually looked like a competent-ish football team, a competent adjacent football team. They didn't look as bad as the rating putting them down at like 115 or whatever. If they have any competence whatsoever, they should be able to go on the road and beat Ohio, who is questionable if they're going to have any competence this year at all. Total of 49.5, really low total. Odds makers don't think there will be very many points. I think Florida Atlantic goes on the road and wins. It's only a B grade play. It's an A grade play if you can lay 3 without having to pay too much juice, but at 4, only a B grade. But I think they get it done. And we talked about it before. Other than the UTEP going to Oklahoma being the exception, I like backing the team that's played in week 0, having that game under their feet. I think it really matters. I think it's a difference maker. I think they can go on the road and get the win. And at that point, I just got to avoid them winning by 3 and we're set. So I like Florida Atlantic just at 4. It's only a B grade. Yeah. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
Man, those Ohio Bobcats, man. See, this is why I'm on this show, because I can just sit here and talk about the Ohio Bobcats for a little while.
I'm really curious what you're going to say about them.
I mean, while Frank Solich was there, you could just pencil him in for 8 wins every season. And he retires, and the offensive coordinator takes over. And their offense had always been very solid while Solich had been there. And this guy had been coaching with Solich, I think maybe since back in the Nebraska days. He'd been there with Solich a long time. He took over and everything just kind of fell apart. And it was almost inexplicable because it was one of those things where it felt like there was so much consistency with the program and nothing really changed. And so last season just made no sense at all. I have a really hard time thinking that they're going to be as bad this year as they were last year. And so I think Florida Atlantic is a decent team for Conference USA or where I'm pretty sure they're still in Conference USA. Everybody's moving around eventually, so I can't keep track where they're at now, where they're going to.
Are they going to the Sun Belt? I don't know.
I don't know. But so I think it's going to be hard for Ohio to be that bad again. And, I mentioned it before, Florida Atlantic unders have been hitting like crazy last year. It hit last week against Charlotte. Again, I think
aided because the quarterback, though. I don't think that goes under if the quarterback doesn't.
And so I'm worried that this total is a little bit low, partially because of that reason and partially because they're looking at Ohio's offense last year and it was just so bad. And I think that Ohio's offense is going to regress to be a little bit better this year. So no play for me here at all.
And I think the model's taking that into account too. It tends to kind of say like, look at the underlying metrics, right? Look at who's coming back and kind of say in general, if you've underperformed like that, you tend to get a little bit back toward, or if you overperformed, you tend to fall back a little bit more. Your regression isn't necessarily just a positive or negative term. It just means things kind of trend back toward a little bit more towards average the next year. Right? So I think you're absolutely right. The model's taking into account that as well. So I think that agrees with what your eyeballs are telling you as well.
Yeah. So this total may be a little low just for that reason, but I'm not playing anything in this game.
If it was 49, would you go over?
Oh,
48.
Probably, yeah,
48.
It has to be 48. Yeah, 48, okay. Because once you get to 48 is like the lower end of a lot of key numbers. Yeah. So that's like an almost play.
6 touchdowns and 2 field goals.
Yeah.
6 o'clock Eastern. Maybe we got some ugly games here. Rice at USC. USC is a 31.5 point favorite. A total of 61. Cousin Jared. Is USC the clear runaway team for most new pieces to adjust in week 1, or is there someone that I'm missing that's trying to balance that out with them? I mean, I feel like they've got so many new things coming in, including the coaching staff, right?
So there's no way that any team can have more. Maybe Ole Miss is right there with them, but there's nobody that has more. But I think for Power 5 teams, those are definitely the top 2.
Okay. A lot of questions with USC. They're a team we talked about in the season preview episode and how much depth do they have. That might play out later in the season. how well are they going to get going to start the season? Are all the pieces going to be there? There's a stretch where this team might look really dominant where they get it going. I don't think it's early on. I'm going to fade USC here. I'm taking a lot of big numbers, and we talked about this in the last episode. In general, if you're going to take 7 or 8 big dogs, you're not going to win all of them. One or two of them is going to get absolutely thumped. But in general, I think it's probably a smarter look on average. I think this is way too many points here with Rice. Like I said, they may get thumped, but 31.5, getting the hook on a quasi-ish key number at 31, 27, 28, 30, 31, all reasonable outcomes, and all of those are winners. You got to get to 34 and 35 before you get, again, quasi-key numbers that are on the wrong side of it for this. Model says this game should be 28.1, so crossing some key numbers there. I really like Rice getting all these points. Like I said, I just have no idea what to expect from USC week 1. We're going to learn a lot about how quickly some of those pieces get together. Not by the score, we're going to learn a lot, and probably not even by the box score. It's going to have to be watching this and seeing how in sync the line is, how in sync the receivers are with the quarterback. Are the passes just a step ahead, a step behind? Is the running back hitting the holes, or is he a step off? I mean, all of those things to figure out with all the new people. If you're watching this game with your eyes, you're going to learn a lot. I don't think you're going to learn a lot if you look at the box score, because USC should win this game handily. Yeah, I just think 31.5 is too many. I think they win by 24, 27, 28, 30, 31. You got a lot of ways they can still embarrass Rice, but no need to run up the score late. A lot of new pieces to see, a lot of things to try out. I just think it's too many points. A great play for me on Rice. I'm taking all these points and hoping that that's enough to cover. What do you think?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Rice is basically like the Texas version of Stanford, or at least they try to be like Stanford. Here in Houston. I can argue this both ways. I think the way that Rice covers this game is that they possess the ball. They exploit some maybe the lack of depth that USC has on the defensive line. They get string a few first downs together and they lose by 24 points or something like that. That's how I see them covering. But looking at it from the other side with USC, I think they squarely fall into the category. If y'all were with us last week, I mentioned I was taking the under in the Utah State-UConn game, because what did Utah State have to prove in that game, right? Mm-hmm. Well, USC's got a lot to prove, and they're not going to care who they're playing against. They don't care if it's Rice or not. They're going to have a lot to prove with Lincoln Riley there and Williams and kind of all the new toys that they have. So I'm not playing anything in this game. I could easily make a case as to why either team's going to cover this one. Yeah.
It's a good point. Lincoln Riley can be a feisty character. Is one way you could say that. And,
yes.
You hope that his time in the this region of the country, that he has a soft spot for Rice and doesn't embarrass him. But I'm with you. I think Rice has a lot of ways they can win this or win this spread. Obviously, not win the game. There's almost no way they win the game. But they can cover the spread. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, just a smart statistical play in that you're crossing a lot of key numbers, and there are way more ways that we win than lose. But again, making smart plays isn't going to win us 55% of the games, right? It's going to be just a little bit of a help. Got to take every little bit of edge we can get. So I want extra money on it. But absolutely, like we always talk about, every pick can lose, and Cousin Jared outlined exactly how this one can lose. And if you can't outline exactly how you're going to lose a play, you're not thinking hard enough, because they're there if you look hard enough for every single play you make. Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Army at Coastal Carolina. Should be an interesting game. Two teams
I'm excited.
I'm excited for this one. I mean, kind of an under the radar game. Two teams that, either one of these teams can sneaky, maybe hang in top 25 ish. In that ballpark. I mean, probably not what we expect, but both teams, solid teams. And if things bounce right for them, might Coastal Carolina did last year, right? We didn't expect that. Coastal Carolina is a 2-point home favorite here. Obviously, we do expect a lot of regression from Coastal Carolina, and we expect Army to be the same sort of team they are usually at this point. They've been the last several years. A solid team, one that beats the teams they're supposed to beat and loses to the teams they're supposed to lose to, but disciplined. So, I mean, all the same things you talk about there. The biggest thing is, how much is Coastal Carolina going to regress from last year's dream season? Is that okay to call it that, a dream season? Is that?
It was a good season for sure.
Yeah, good season for them. Total of 53 in here. I'll take Army +2 with a C grade pick. Model says it should be Coastal Carolina -1. It's Coastal Carolina -2. Not really an edge here. It's just a lean on Army. But I mean, you're
Yeah.
basically just picking the winner. I'm going to say that Coastal Carolina regresses a little bit more. Only a lean. If this was week 2 and Coastal Carolina had played last week, having no time to prep for Army, I would like Army. I'd give Army a better grade for sure. But
yeah,
Coastal Carolina having time to prep for this helps and doesn't help. It helps because you have time to prep for it. It doesn't help because if you don't have the personnel to prep for it, you just can't do it, right? And that's obviously the big question of we always talk about with these triple option teams, how much time you have to prep. And it's like for some teams who have the right people to help prep against that, it really matters. And for other teams, they can have all the time they want and they just can't do it and it doesn't matter. So sometimes that gets overplayed. Sometimes it doesn't. You just never really know unless you're watching the practices, unless you know things about the team. And as much as we know about college football, we don't know those sort of insight things on all 130 teams. If you do, these are, again, I'm giving you things to think on. So if you have that research viewer, then you know more than we do. I can't tell you exactly how well Coastal Carolina is going to be able to prep for this triple option from Army. What we do know about Army, and the reason I'm taking Army in a game that I think is priced pretty well, is we know Army tends to be disciplined, and that sort of thing could make the difference in a tight ball game. So I'll take them +2 or money line, but it's not one that I really like. I think it should be a great game, and I don't really know what's going to happen. Give me the 2 points, but it's not my favorite play of the day whatsoever. I don't think there's a ton of value on it. Cousin Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, it's my thing with this game is, and you know, people can get on me in the comments here. That's fine. When it comes down to it, I think Coastal Carolina's offense just has a lot more explosive potential than Army's does.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's my hesitancy with Army in this spot. And don't get me wrong, I watched that Army Wake Forest game. I know that Army's offense can be explosive, but
that was a lot more Wake Forest than Army, to be fair.
True. That was the kind of Wake Forest MO last year.
Is that, which made them so fun to watch, but frustrating to back sometimes.
Exactly. Which Coastal Carolina has Grayson McCall at quarterback, and he's just going to be light years better, especially passing the ball, than I'm sure Army's quarterback could run me to the ground, obviously, but I mean, a lot better passer than any that Army's going to throw out there. So that would be my hesitancy here. I'm staying away from this game just because I'm excited about it. I think this is going to be a great game. It only took us like 4 hours and 15 minutes of shows this week to finally get to one of the best games of the week, which is Army and Coastal Carolina.
You know, I have no defense, but you're right. I was thinking about that. Like, we've talked a lot of week 1 games, and it's kind of like, like this game exists too. So thank you for hanging around to the 4th hour of the marathon content of week 1. We finally got, but it's why it's here, because I don't think we have a lot great to say about it. I'm like you. I'm really excited to watch it. I think it's definitely going to be on my TV, one of my TVs, or my laptop, iPad, whatever. The big question is, how much does Coastal Carolina regress? If not that much, then at home they probably win this game. If it's a decent amount, I think Army can get it done. And I don't know. It's somewhere between those two is probably the reality, but we don't know the answer to that. So it'll be a great game to watch, but I don't think it's hard for me to say like, oh, well, here's your great edge and your great play. It's kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. Let's watch it and learn and enjoy. You don't have to wager on every game. And this is one that if you just want to stay away and learn, I think it's a smart choice personally. 7 o'clock Eastern Saturday night, Liberty at Southern Miss. Liberty's a 3.5 point favorite. I'll take Liberty at 3.5. It's a C+ pick for me. Model says it should be Liberty -4.8. At 3, it's a B play. At 2.5, it's an A play. So I mean, that's kind of my breakdown of it. It's almost a B pick. I waffle up. Like I said, C+ really. If you can get 3 at like -115, it's probably a B, maybe -120, maybe. I'd feel much better at 3 than 3.5. And that's what's got to get to the B. And like I said, I don't think it will, but if it does get to 2.5, that's an A grade play for me. I like Liberty. I think they go on the road and win. I think they're a much better team than Southern Miss. I'm just nervous that on the road they win by 3, and I want the push protection. 3 is, like we talked about, 3 is the most important number and we talked about conditional probability, right? 3 is not the most important number in Oklahoma UTEP. It's not the most important number in Texas and UL Monroe, right? But for a close game, 3 is the most important number. 3 in football is the most important number in all sports. So I want Liberty -3 to feel better about it. It's a C play that I think is worth a look, but it's not a C play that I'm really excited about having to lay the hook there. But I do think Liberty's a better team. I think they go on the run and get it done. I just don't think there's a ton of value on it. Cousin Joe, what do you got?
I'm not sure if there's a game on the slate this week that I have less thoughts on than this game, aside from the fact that Connor Brewer is the quarterback for Liberty, and I trust Hugh Freeze, and so that definitely seems to me to be an edge towards Liberty. But again, like, I have no insight or thoughts beyond that.
Yeah, I kind of am with you on. You could tell me anything's going to happen with Hugh Freeze and Liberty, and I'd be like, I mean, that guy kind of knows what he's doing. He has a lot of question marks in a lot of areas, and I'll leave it at that. But like with regards to the X's and O's and the football, like you could tell me like anybody's going to be there. You know, he's taking a middle school quarterback and he's going to start and be like, well, he must know something we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I trust it. And obviously, a lot of question marks there with how they'll look this year. Kind of also another, coming off a couple solid seasons. Can they replicate the success and stay at that, that really interesting level, or are they going to fall back kind of towards mediocrity? So a lot of questions with Liberty as well. If they're going to stay good, going on the road and winning at Southern Miss is the thing that they need to do. That needs to be a staple victory for them. Just go take care of business, right? It's not going to be one that gets you on the front page. You got to go take care of business and get these wins. So like I said, I think they can. I just don't love 3.5. 7 o'clock. You talk about we've taken a long time to get to some good games, and this is another one that it's just a shame it took us this long to get to UMass at Tulane. UMass is the one. Like week 0 was like the poo-poo platter of college football. I mean, it was all of the bad teams, and UMass is over here like, hey guys, did you forget about us? Consistently fighting for the worst ranking in college football. They're going to be in that discussion again this year with New Mexico State, with UConn, with Hawaii. Hawaii has at least a better long-term outcome. I don't know if, but by the end of the season, maybe they'll have figured out a little bit more than they have right now. New Mexico State, we talked about with the true freshman quarterback, having a little bit of a pulse. UConn having a bit of a pulse. I mean, hey, UMass, it's time to step up and see, like we talked about last week. We talked about that bottom group of teams was like a really far. If UMass shows a pulse, maybe that gap is starting to shrink and the bottom teams aren't quite that much worse than everybody else, right?
We can hope.
We can hope. I'm not going to hold my breath. I mean, UMass is absolutely terrible.
I'm
going to take the 28 points, though. I think it's too many. They are absolutely terrible. But Tulane's not really that good of a football team, right?
Tulane did not have a great season last year. That is correct.
That's an understatement, right? I mean, not a good football team. Model says this should be Tulane minus 25. I just think it's too many points. If this number was 25, if this number was 26, that'd be fine, maybe even 27. But the fact that you're giving me the push on, again, a quasi key number out here at 28, UMass can easily lose this game by 27-28. One of those we win, one of those we push. UMass is absolutely terrible, but Tulane's, I don't think, good enough to be favored by this much over anybody. And I mean by literally anybody, because UMass might be the worst team in college football. So if it ain't here, it ain't anywhere. It's a B-grade pick for me on UMass. I just think it's too many points. UMass is absolutely terrible. But if you're betting, we got a lot of new viewers here, right? Coming in college football season, a lot of new people. I love all my new followers here. But hear me out on this. If your philosophy is this team's bad, I'm going to bet against them, I have news for you. It's called the point spread numbers are really big for a reason. And if you just do that consistently, you're probably going to go 500-ish and lose money because of the juice, right? Like it's not a start. Don't comment. UMass is terrible. I know that. Right. Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Right. Give me some good comments. Don't give me. I know UMass is terrible. Absolutely. But we just can't back good teams, and we just can't fade terrible teams every week. There's the reason why the point spread exists. And like I said, if we just constantly focus on how bad these teams are, they're going to cover some games. Edge wise, this is an A grade edge. I have it at a B grade play percentage wise. Yeah. If you have with this up, because Joe just gave me a look. Percent edge, this is a 7% edge. This is a 7% edge mathematically. It's probably an A grade or close to an A grade edge, but I would not give it an A grade, and here's why. I talked about it a lot last year. I'll talk about it again this year. Outliers. Any mathematical model is going to struggle with outliers. UMass is definitely an outlier on the bottom, and it's hard to know exactly how much worse they are. And if they're an extra couple of points better or worse, that could really affect your opinion on this game. And so that extra variability matters. And so that's why I can't give it an A grade play. And like I said, it's an A or B with regards to the percent edge, but my confidence is more B/C because that extra variability of UMass being on the bottom and not knowing exactly how terrible they are. If they are even worse outlier wise, then they might lose this game by 40. But that said, the model still thinks this is too many points. I'm going to trust it. I'm going to give it a B grade. I'm going to back UMass. We're going to back a lot of terrible teams.
Yeah.
Let's go UMass Minutemen.
Yes.
You can not be horrible. I trust you to do something competent in football, which maybe I shouldn't do, but just don't get embarrassed and you'll be all right. Cousin Jared, what do you got?
Yeah. So the professor just told you, don't say in the comments that UMass is terrible. We know well, here's my analysis of this game. UMass is terrible.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And honestly, I was a little bit surprised when I was looking this up. Tulane, the 77th best team according to the model. That's actually higher than I thought it would have been. And the way that I would break down this game is we saw what Vanderbilt did to Hawaii, and I think that Tulane has the potential to do a very similar thing here to as to that game, very similar thing to UMass. And what I mean by that is I don't want to get involved in the spread here because, again, Tulane's not a very good team either. But what I like here is the over 59 because I think that Tulane is going to take out some frustration and score a lot of points here. And then, they can put in the backups, and then who knows, the UMass might score 21 points or something crazy like that against Tulane here. So I like the over 59. Obviously, I like it a lot better at 58. But, I think there's just going to be you get some points and you get some points and you get some points in this game. I don't trust UMass to stop anybody. So an official play for me, I'm going to over 59.
All right. We've probably spent way too much time on that game than we should have. So moving forward to 7:30 Eastern, Georgia State at South Carolina. Cousin Jared, South Carolina.
Yeah. So
what do you got at South Carolina? I feel like I can go either way on this team.
So I have nothing to say about this game. So I'm going to throw it back over to you after I finish my analysis, and you don't even have to throw it back to me because we're done. As an A&M fan, South Carolina is the cross-division rival for A&M. We play them every year. I am petrified of the South Carolina team, and petrified in the sense of, like, don't get me wrong, there's better teams that A&M is going to play this year, but it's just in a spot where A&M has done very well against South Carolina in the past. Yes, definitely a sneak up on them spot. They played so competitively in a lot of these games last year with absolutely nobody at quarterback. And I know the Oklahoma fans who are going to get in the comments here and try to tell us that Spencer Rattler is not a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback, but relative to what South Carolina had last year, this guy is like walking on water. And so I'm really concerned that he's going to, similar kind of how we talked about the quarterback of Texas unlocking the potential of that team. I'm very worried that Rattler is going to unlock the potential of the South Carolina team.
Yeah, I don't know what he can be average. He can be mediocre, and that opens up some avenues that they did not have last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm concerned as an A&M fan that has to play this team. So I don't have any takes on this game, but if Rattler plays, at a slightly above average level, I think this is going to be a team that not going to want to mess with.
Yeah. Model says this game is priced pretty well. Model says it should be South Carolina minus 12. I'm going to lay 12.5 for South Carolina. It's only a C grade pick. I don't think there's a lot of value, but I talked about this with week 1 with Nebraska, or week 0 with Northwestern and Nebraska. And I said, this feels like a game we're going to look back on later in the season and be like, why in the world was Nebraska favored by so much? This is a game that's going to be a 1-score game.
Yep.
And I thought Nebraska could pull it off, and LOL. This feels like a game that we're going to look back on and say South Carolina should have been a 14-point favorite.
Yep.
So I'm gonna lay the 12.5. It's only a secret pick though. I just think there's a lot of value on it, but
yeah, I agree.
I just can't shake the feeling that like South Carolina has a little bit of buzz, a little bit of hype here, a little bit of like this team might be frisky.
Yep.
And if that's the case, they should take care of business here and win this game handily.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they will, but it just I just can't shake this feeling of like, if they're going to be anything, they need to go out there and win this game by 14, by 17, by 20, 21, and just kind of make it a ho-hum, boring flip away from it because it's not entertaining, just solid victory at home.
Yeah.
And I just can't shake the feeling that's what we're going to see. So I think that's the side to be on. I don't think I'd want Georgia State unless I was getting way more points than I'm getting right now.
Yeah.
But at least for right now, I just don't love it. I don't think it's a great investment. Like I said, I just can't get that feeling out of my head. So maybe someone else can run with that and use that. But
yeah, and I think South Carolina squarely falls into we have something to prove territory, especially on offense. Enough about this game. Let's go back to the Nebraska Northwestern. So we said that we
said we do this every episode. We're going to come back to Nebraska.
Yeah.
So here we go. Yeah, let's do it.
So week 0 last year, we said we're doing the Nebraska season preview in week 0 every year, and I took Illinois on the money line that first game of the season last year, and I cashed in on that. What was I thinking? Why didn't I take Northwestern on the money line? So that's going to be the new rule that I'm going to have. We're going to cover Nebraska season preview in week 0 every year. I'm going to take the money line against Nebraska the first game of the season every year.
I can't wait for next year when they don't play in week 0.
That'll screw up everything.
Also, okay. Asterisk, does this only apply to Scott Frost? I mean,
true. That is true. And so, no, we won't be doing it next year.
Yeah. 7:30 Eastern, Utah State and Alabama. That's
Outliers?
A lot of points. That's a lot of points. Outliers. Alabama, definitely an outlier. But Cousin Jared, that's a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. I have 2 concerns. Number 1, outliers. Number 2
for sure.
is
sorry, real quick, just dive back real quick again to elaborate in case you're missing the point. The point being, Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State are so good at the top that models sometimes struggle to deal with just how good they are and can be. It's just hard to know. And in the event that we see one of those truly dominant, once every 2 or 3 years, we see one of those Alabama teams, the numbers just can't get high enough, and that's the question mark we have here. So carry on, Cousin Jared.
Yeah, so outliers, number 1. Number 2, UConn had 3 or 4 explosive plays against Utah State last week. Alabama has more than 3 or 4 explosive plays. Yeah. And the other thing is, I mentioned this in the breakdown of Utah State UConn game last week, but really Utah State just needs to get out of this game healthy. And so, what incentive do they have to keep Logan Bonner in the game for too long? Or I'm sure many of the other good players that Utah State has, there's really no advantage to keeping them in the game for a ton of time. So I'm not making any play on this game. Definitely, I'm not laying. I don't know if I can remember getting this many points with a semi-competent team. I mean, this team played in their conference championship game last season.
Thank you.
And so I don't know if I can ever remember getting this many points with a team like that, but I'm not taking them. There's no way I would lay the points with Alabama, but I'm not taking the points either.
Yes, 100%. That's where I have to take the points. I have to stick to my guns here mathematically. It's a lot of points. It's a B grade play, 41.5. 41 is a key-ish number out here.
Okay, hold on.
Alabama could have by 41.
Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
Hold on. If this gets to 42, I will jump on Utah State.
Okay,
which I think
because 42 is a quasi key number too, right? I mean,
and I feel
like 49.7, and you'd be like, sure, absolutely.
And this feels like the Alabama money starts coming in on Saturday morning because everybody's just going to bet the
because people favorite. I think people are going to look at this game and be like, 42 divides evenly by 7, and it's only 41.5. Let's lay it with Alabama. And I'm like, well, that's an analysis. I don't know if it's a good one, but it is an analysis. I'm with you. I'm with you. If this gets to 42, I might add a unit to it as well and jump this to an A grade play because, and not that they couldn't by 43, because 43 be possible too. In that if Alabama scores 7 touchdowns, Utah kicks 2 field goals. Yeah, it could be 49-6, right? So it's not like if you get 42, it's not like you're in the clear either. But 42. Also a key-ish number, and you get some push protection there. It's just, I'm with you. It's just so many points. And look, someone can screen grab this when Alabama wins this game by 70. But I'm with you. I'm used to seeing Alabama with these big numbers against teams that you're like, yeah, but that team's not good. Because if this is UConn, this number's 70 or something stupid, right?
Yeah.
But I'm used to seeing this type of number with a team that's more ranked in the 80s and 90s and that sort of thing, 100. And I'm like, Utah State isn't bad. They're not going to win this game, absolutely. But like you said, they're semi-competent, and it's just so many points. Model says this game should be 38.6. I agree that if you give me 38 in the hook, I would be like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't touch either because it's still too many points. But 38 in the hook
Yeah.
would be like, it's just not enough for me. It's not enough for me to get there with Utah State.
Yeah.
Even if you gave me 40, I'd say it's probably not enough. But 41, again, being a quasi-key number on the hook of that at minus 104 odds, I like the odds there. And like you said, if it gets to 42, it's just so many points. Alabama may win this game by 60, but you talk about Utah State having nothing to prove. I mean, Alabama really has nothing to prove either. A lot of teams come off of this like we didn't win the national championship, and they do have something to prove. But Nick Saban has nothing to prove, and he's not going to be trying to leave his guys out there and be like, well, we didn't win the title last year. We've got to win. He's going to want to come out strong at the start for sure. But fourth quarter wise, he's not going to be keeping the foot to the pedal.
That's true. You could take Bryce Young out after 2.5 quarters. You got to get everybody ready for Texas because we definitely want to embarrass Texas.
This is true. This is true. Oh gosh, that game we're gonna. 7:30 Eastern. Memphis and Mississippi State. I feel like because this feels like a Cousin Jared special written all over it. I really hope it can. If the total gets to 58, can we talk you into the under? And just for old times. Okay. Yes, all right. I'm holding you to that. If it gets to 58, check Twitter, check the sheet. We're gonna have Cousin Jared's gonna make a play on this at 58, and it just feels like he should do it. It's like these two teams. It feels right. I'll take Memphis at 16.5 with the B grade play. Model says this game should be 13.2. Crossing a couple key numbers here, going maybe 13 being a winner and being very possible, 14 being a winner and very possible. Not at 17, if you get to 17, it's an A grade play. I'd love 17, but at 16.5, I still think it's worth a look, given that 13 and 14 are the two most likely outcomes of this, and we win both of them. I think it's too many points here. I know it's on the road. Mississippi State's a tough place to play. They get a little bit larger of a home field advantage than most teams do because of that atmosphere. But Memphis is just right up the road. So, I mean, it's not like it's the craziest travel spot for them. They've been thinking about this game all off season. This is a big game for them, going to play an SEC team. They have visions of an upset. They have visions of showing them who's boss. I mean, there's a lot of recruiting ground over these two teams. I mean, I think Memphis can hang in there and get this game. 16.5, like I said, is way too many. I'm surprised this number isn't 13 or 14. I think that's what it should be. So it's a B grade play for me on Memphis at 16.5. I'm leaving myself room to add an extra unit if it does get to 17 by Saturday morning, because 17 would be a really nice number to have. Cousin Joe, what do you got?
Okay, so sure, I'll take the under if it gets 58. And the reason that I'm fine,
it's 57.5 now. It's only half a point away.
Only half a point away. So everybody, I think, when they're talking about Mississippi State this offseason, has talked about the offense and it being Will Rogers' third year with Mike Leach, and you could go through and list all the quarterbacks that just had unbelievable seasons in their third year with Leach, and so I feel like that's what gets the publicity for Mississippi State. If Mississippi State's going to have a good season, I think it's going to be on their defense. I think their defense is going to be pretty salty this year. And so just something that I'm watching for, and obviously a reason that I would take the under here is I just think Mississippi State's defense doesn't get the respect that it deserves. And if they have a good season, it's going to be because of the defense, not necessarily because of Will Rogers. So that's all I got to say about this game.
I have two things to come back to real quick. And Will Rogers transfer from Stanford, right?
Couldn't tell you. No. That was Costello. That was the guy that was
Costello.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Couldn't tell you where Rogers came from.
Okay. I couldn't remember on that either. A second point, let's do a fun thought exercise. If you could time travel back to 20 years ago and tell 20 years ago us that Mike Leach successful season with an SEC school would be due to his defense, I feel like you'd have a lot of questions.
I would have so many questions.
But
the thing is,
and the answers would get long too.
Yes, and the thing is that the most insane part of that whole thing would be the whole detour to Washington State.
I was like the two. Yeah, because I feel like the current us would be like, oh well, by the way, here's what I haven't told you. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There was this whole other thing too that happened.
Yeah, and he was he the coach there when game day finally went there for the first time? Because I feel like that was like just it. Like whenever game day went to Pullman for the first time, like I feel like
that's right, but I can't recall specifically.
I can't recall either. Everything happened last year or the year before, so
Yeah, our perception of time these days is just completely out the window.
What is time? Let's make it into our 5th college football show of the season. It's like, what is time?
What is time? It's a great question. Hey, there was
Yeah.
a previous episode of baseball where I gave weird time zone suggestions. So here we are.
There we go.
A recap of that game though. B pick for me on Memphis at 16.5.
Yeah.
I'd love it if it gets to 17. I've got room to add that. And then Cousin Jared's eyeing the total. If we can get it to 58, he's going under for us. But 57.5, missing that key, that push protection there, like we always talk about on 58, is very valuable. Worth several many percentage points. That's valuable in the long run. 8 p.m. Eastern, Louisville at Syracuse. A sneaky good game here late. Syracuse, tough place to play. One of the toughest place to play. The travel is not easy to get out to Syracuse. It's a weird dome to play in. Weird things happen in there. Weird things happen in Syracuse no matter when. Now, they get really weird if it's like a Friday night game. That's when it seems like it gets the weirdest. But sometimes those Saturday noon Eastern games get wonky. Teams sleep through it. The night games, weird things happen in there. It's a tough place to play. Syracuse, always good for 1 or 2 upsets at home, and always good for 1 or 2 more like, whoa, that was way closer than we thought it should be type games.
Wake Forest last year.
Also good for 1 or 2 absolute clunkers at home. And that's, of course, what you have to keep an eye out on here, because you never really know what Syracuse team is going to show up. They're getting 4 points against Louisville at minus 105 odds. I will take them +4. Only a C-grade pick model says 4. Syracuse is a side I want to be on. I don't want to be fading Syracuse around this number, given how wonky it is to travel there and to play there. But again, knowing that Syracuse can lay a stinker, it's just not that exciting for me on this play, especially at 4, maybe at 4.5. I'm getting a little bit more excited about it. I might actually look money line on this and just say this is a game that kind of anything can happen. Louisville's the better team, but going on the road in week 1 with all the uncertainty around teams, we could look back on this game, and say, in 5 weeks, we could look back on this game and say, wow, Louisville should have been a 17-point favorite. Or we could look back on this game and say, how in the world was this Louisville team favored in that game on the road? Either one of those could really be true with the uncertainty we have in week 1. So honestly, moneyline might actually be a better play. Just take a stab at it there and say, who the heck knows what's going to happen in this game? I'm taking the 4 points. Total is 56.5. Cousin Joe, what do you got for us? Also, this game is Saturday night, right?
Sure.
It feels like it should be Friday. That's just all I'm going to say. Last thing I'll say. It feels like it should be a Friday night game.
Yes, it is on Saturday.
An AC conference game, right?
So my first thought when I saw this line was I'm going to lay the points with Louisville, because last year Louisville beat Syracuse 41-3. But as I was doing more research, the thing was that was kind of an outlier for Syracuse season. The wheels came off towards the end of the season. They lost their last 3 games. They got blown out. Louisville, they got blown out. But then NC State and Pitt, 2 of the better teams in the ACC. Obviously, Pitt, the best team in the ACC last year, lost both of those by large margins. But before that, they beat Liberty by 3. They lost to Florida State by 3.
Fun game.
Yeah, they lost to Wake Forest by 3. They lost to Clemson by 3. They beat Virginia Tech by 5. Like, they had all of these close games. And so, like, going back and looking, probably, like I said, the wheels came off at the end of the season. That middle stretch is, I think, maybe more representative of just what you're going to get from Syracuse. Not that they're a good team, but just they're tough.
Well, they're going to lack depth, and you saw that at the end of the season last year. It's not going to matter for week 1 because the depth shouldn't be a huge issue. It might be more of an issue if you're playing like in the swamp in Florida, right? But it shouldn't really matter in this game.
Yeah, and when they've played teams the caliber of Louisville, they've usually played them pretty close. Couple that with the fact that it's at home in Syracuse, and you just always have this mental image of a game on ESPN2 going to like overtime, but playing in the Carrier Dome. It's just one of those things I talk myself out of it. So definitely like laying the points with Louisville is my lean here, but I just can't get there.
Yeah, it feels like a game that could go to that like whatever 5th overtime nonsense we talk about and be like, oh, we've won either way because like who the heck, it doesn't matter who gets the 2-point conversions. Yeah, I'm with you. Mathematically, there's not really an edge here, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, this feels like a game that Syracuse could hang in there and win or lose by 3, and at +4, you don't have to care. So I may talk myself into a B grade play on this, especially if I get 4.5. It's just intriguing to me. I think the more I think about it, it feels like week 0 Nebraska Northwestern, where people talked about, look how bad Nebraska beat them last year. And I told people, and and that doesn't mean that Louisville isn't going to go in there and stomp them. That's absolutely on the table, because Louisville's a solid team and Syracuse might not be that good. Absolutely. Like I said, we could look back in a few weeks and be like, how is this not Louisville -14, right? Yeah. But you shouldn't, you can do whatever you want. You shouldn't just look at one result from the previous year and say, well, these two teams match up and this is what's going to be predictive, because the other games, believe it or not, the other 10, 11 games matter way more than that one game. That one game should matter, like it maybe should count like for 2 games last year in this analysis, but the other 11 still get 11 of the now denominator of 13 or whatever, how many ever games they're playing, right? It's still just a small piece. And I'm with you. It feels just like that, where it's like, I know Nebraska kicked the crap out of Northwestern last year, but think about how many close games Nebraska played in. Like, that was the outlier. And it's the same sort of thing. It's like, I'm with you. Like, that was the outlier. I'm not really concerned about that whatsoever. Anything can happen in sports, absolutely. But it's like, the more reasonable scenarios, this is a tight game. And I'm more concerned that Louisville just wins by 6 or 7 than I am Louisville wins by 40 like they did last year, especially in that arena. They are good for a clunker or 2 every year at home. But again, more times than not, they either win or lose close in that place, no matter who they're playing, it seems like. My favorite part is that you just called it that arena. So we're already in college basketball mode here with Carrier Dome, people. We're already getting in the right state of mind. I mean, well,
you're not wrong.
It's an hour 20 in. It's anything with this. Because is there a difference between a dome and an arena?
I don't know, but again, you're not wrong.
Yeah. All right. We've now covered every game this week. So 2-minute drill. Again, I don't know how long this is going to take. It probably won't take that long. Cousin Jared, what do you want to come back to? What do you want to add units to on all these Saturday games?
Yeah, I think in the future we're going to call this like the 5-minute drill, or what's it called, like the 6-minute drill, where they're just trying to like kill time at the end of the game without scoring, just like run the clock down. So that's what we're going to call this 2-minute drill. Okay, so things that I'm looking at. Okay, first thing that I'm officially doing here is the North Texas line is out to 11.5. So North Texas is getting 11.5 points at home against SMU. This line didn't make sense when it was hung the first time. It makes even less sense to me now. Again, I tell you, I look at other projections and what other people are saying, and nobody is coming close to this 11.5 number. I don't know what the odds makers think they know that we don't know. I'm adding a second unit at plus 11.5 points on North Texas. So that's going to be a 2-unit play for me, along with Houston. We talked about that earlier in the week. Laying the 4 points of Houston at UT San Antonio is also a 2-unit play for me. 2 totals that I have an eye on: East Carolina at North Carolina State. That's currently at 51.5. If that gets to 51, I will play the over there. And then this one, I really hope this gets there. It's 61.5 almost everywhere right now. It hasn't gotten to 62, but Colorado State at Michigan. If that number gets to 62, I will be on the under at Colorado State in Michigan. A Michigan under, what could possibly go wrong? And usually I say that sarcastically, but in this one, I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, that seems pretty good to me. And then 2 games that we talked about today that I'm still pondering on: UCLA laying the 23 points against Bowling Green. Like, I just don't know how Bowling Green's going to score points in that game. So the laying the 23 points is getting more appealing. And then we talked about it. If Utah State gets to 42, I will jump on that. That is a lot of points for a competent team. And I guess we also said I would play the under 58 in Memphis and Mississippi State if it got there. So I will write that one down, so I do not forget for you viewer that I will play the under 58 in that Memphis game.
All right, so check Twitter and the Google Sheet for all those updates. The Google Sheet, again, is in the show's description. It's also on the website. I have nothing else to add. I looked through. There's nothing that really jumped out at me that moved that I wanted to put more on. More of the lines have moved my direction, the direction that I've played them, than not. North Texas is one of the few that hasn't, getting a half point bigger. And Cousin Jared, like we talked about, you adding that second unit to that, having the first unit at 11 and now a second one at 11.5. I already had it as an A-grade play with 11, so I have no more room to go for that one. So I can't add any more to it. I'm not giving it a fourth unit. I'm a believer in putting a cap at how much you do. And a couple of these I talked about today, I said, I'm doing one unit. I'm doing a C or a B pick, giving myself room. If it gets better, I can tack on. But at this point, I'm comfortable holding right here. So I can't add to that one. But not many movements that I think have been very puzzling going the wrong direction. So I have nothing else to add officially as of yet. I think as the season goes on, that'll change, because I think with week one, there's been so much movement already that happened previously. Yeah. I'm not a big believer in this whole all the value's been sucked out of it. I still think there's value to be had. I think a lot of the value, and I don't know how many people are still with us here. I hope viewer you still are, and hopefully you're getting some value out of this. But I want to come back to the whole closing line value and trying to make smart statistical plays. of the pieces of the pie. One of the pieces of the pie is just having a good statistical model that sometimes beats the books, and it's not going to beat the books every single time. Yeah. But it's again another one of those things where if you can get it just a little bit of an edge here and a little bit of an edge there and a little bit of an edge there, you put it all together, and that makes for a successful gambler. And that's what I think I have here with the model that I think can beat the books on occasion. And so I think a lot of the movements, kind of taking some of the value out, but there's still some to be had where there's still some questionable lines that I think are off that we're trying to take advantage of. But I think in future episodes and future weeks, I think I'll have more here to say where I'm like, the window will be compressed so much. It'll be like, hey, this number moved this direction, and I don't agree with it, so I'll add on. But at this point, I don't have any ads. But I think in future episodes we will. But for now, anything that changes on that, again, check Twitter and the Google Sheet. Cousin Jared, any last words after the billion hours that we spent talking about week 1 games? We spent more than an hour per game of games that have already played at this point, it feels like.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Yeah, you mentioned it. Follow us on Twitter and over at BetStamp. Again, this is the last show of the week, so anything that we add after this, obviously it'll be in the sheet, but we'll also tweet it out. It'll be posted at BetStamp. So follow us there to get all of the plays right up until kickoff.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's all we have for you today. It's all we have for you this week for college football. Thanks for tuning in to all these episodes here, all this college football content that we've got for you. Hope it helps you out. Remember to check out the Google Sheet, model picks, projections, and results. Again, that link in the show's description and at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. Still have those season preview episodes. If you haven't caught those, check out the website for other goodies. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. For college football content, we will see you again next week. Still doing baseball shows 6 days a week, so lots of sports content here coming your way. And until we see you again, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your any money.